Former ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, is out with a new book and making the claim that two of President Trump's former top officials tried to recruit her to undermine him. Haley presents what could be described as a modern-day Mark Antony speech after the fall of Julius Caesar. According to the Washington Post, which obtained a copy of the book, With All Due Respect, that's the title, she writes that then Chief of Staff John Kelly and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, quote, confided in me that when they resisted the president, they weren't being insubordinate. They were trying to save the country. It was their decisions, not the president's, that were in the best interest of America, they said. The president didn't know what he was doing. Wow. Haley said Tillerson told her that without their resistance, people would die. In an interview with CBS, Haley defended the president, that's Trump, and said if they didn't like what he was up to, they should have resigned. Here she goes.
Instead of saying that to me, they should have been saying that to the president, not asking me to join them on their sidebar plan. It should have been, go tell the president what your differences are and quit if you don't like what he's doing. But to undermine a president is really a very dangerous thing.
For more, I'm joined by Margaret Carlson, columnist for the Daily Beast, and Eugene Robinson, columnist at the Washington Post. Eugene, I've always thought, ever since she pulled down the flag in your beloved South Carolina, ever since she pulled down that Confederate flag, she is a smart, timely, quick politician. And then when she said, I don't get confused one time, and Larry Kudlow said she was confused, exactly. I like that again. Here she is, one-upping all the anti-Trump people and coming in a weird way to the side of Trump.
Right. Clearly, she's A, an ambitious politician. B, I think she's a pretty nimble politician. She wants to be president. And, she served in the Trump administration. She got out. She's listed as one of the few who wasn't ruined.
She was clean.
By the experience.
A clean departure.
Exactly. She, since then, she'll occasionally put out a tweet that's kind of critical of something President Trump is doing, but she's careful not to get on the wrong side of the president and the president's base. And now she's flogging a book, and so she's out with this revelation. I'm not sure if she says, well, what did she say then to Tillerson and Kelly, and what did she say to the president about this cabal that was working against
That's
her?
what I was thinking. Anyway, it appears that Haley's glowing support for the commander-in-chief made it to its intended audience. President Trump tweeted praise for her book. It's not even out yet, telling people to order their copies today. This is the president flogging books and wishing good luck to his former UN ambassador, Margaret. She has chosen sides. This is pretty dramatic stuff. And I say Mark Antony because when the great Brutus took down Caesar, Mark Antony jumped up and said, oh, Caesar was ambitious, and Brutus was an honorable man, and destroyed the guy. I think she's just that dramatic. That dramatic.
Mitch McConnell could have said of her, she persisted. And that she persisted in her job. She got through it. She came out clean, as you said. And then she says in the book, one thing I take issue with, Kelly confided in her. The word confide suggests, well, he thought this was between cabinet members and we were trying to deal with something. Kelly thought he was doing his job, which was to try to get the information flow, not to be whoever walked through the door, which he said were 4 secretaries of state.
Including Jared.
Nikki, H.R. McMaster.
I just want one.
Right. It would be helpful to have one. But to channel the information in some,
okay, can we cut to the
way.
quick? You and I have been friends for 1,000 years. I see presidential material here. I can be sarcastic about it. This may be too slick. Is this too slick? Is this too obviously a play for power?
I think it comes off as a weak cup of tea to me, that she's trying to have it both ways so obviously that in the end she undermines not, John Kelly, but herself.
Okay, does it work with Trump? I mean, Trump is flatterable.
Oh, absolutely.
Can she be on the ticket because of this little gambit? This one gambit.
But if he gets rid of Pence, could she be on the ticket? Well, if he got rid of, I don't think he'll get rid of.
What about when he gets rid of Pompeo? Because Pompeo is going to go run for the Senate. Secretary of State?
Possibility. Would she want to jump back into that? I don't know. She's really walking this tightrope here.
I think so.
She wants 2024.
She doesn't want to offend Trump, but she doesn't want to be so close to him anymore that if he goes down, she goes down with
Well,
him.
I spot her as
She's waiting
presidential
for
someday. I think
2024.
she's got it. I think she's got that it thing in politics. I
She
thought
does-
so with
she does
Obama,
have-
too. But I mean, early, I'm not saying an expert at this, but I'm trying to be.
She has presence, and maybe she's going to be the one that proves it's the Trump Republican Party. It's not the Republican Party.
Well, I also think it's easier for a conservative woman to make it in most political situations. You know, the Golda Meirs, the Thatchers. It just, Angela Merkel.
Yeah.
It just seems they seem to all be conservatives. I mean, both Tillerson and Kelly have publicly spoken out about the president's handling of his job. Let's listen.
Why didn't you deny calling the president a moron?
You know, that's a really old question.
Do you understand that by not answering the question, some people thought you were confirming the story?
I think I've answered the question.
You think you answered the question?
I've answered the question.
I said, whatever you do, don't hire a yes man, someone that's going to tell you, or it won't tell you the truth. Don't do that. Because if you do, I believe you'll be impeached.
Well, Tillerson and Kelly are now pushing back at Haley's claims. Tonight, Peter Baker reported that Tillerson said, quote, Ambassador Haley was rarely a participant in my many meetings and is not in a position to know what I may or may not have said to the president. And in response to Haley's new book, Kelly told the Washington Post that if giving Trump, quote, the best and most open legal and ethical staffing advice from across the government so he could make an informed decision is working against Trump, then guilty as charged. Not exactly a denial.
No, absolutely not a denial. Nothing close to a denial in either what Tillerson said or what Kelly said. So
it may have
to assume
happened.
it's true.
I think the conversation happened. Do you believe the conversation happened?
I do, and I think this is what they both wanted to do with their jobs, but weren't able to do. They failed at their jobs, and Haley's calling them out. But I think they win as much as she does.
And by the
Who's
way,
an
if they
evangelical? You're from the South. I'm going to ask you an evangelical question, even if you're not. Can he keep the evangelical support and bump Pence off and put her in there as VP? If he has a woman opponent and he wants to match her?
Oh, look, if all that Donald Trump hasn't, if all that he has done so far has not cost him the evangelical vote, then of course he can.
I think he'd want to. If it's Elizabeth Warren is the candidate and she's a very good chance of being the Democratic nominee, he may want to match the woman with a woman. I'm just thinking.
He might, but doesn't Nikki Haley really want to wait till 2024 and do it clean?
I think she does.
Because she's got a distance now from Trump. She's not a never Trumper. She's right there.
Well, look, Margaret, you're forgetting she could become vice president and encourage him to eat more hamburgers. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right.
Margaret Carlson, thank you. Women know how to do that if they want to do it, I think. If they wanted to do it, thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.